Imagine that we have been studying Gita for a long time, but we still don't understand it. But it was described to Arjuna in the stress of the battlefield, and he understood. So human beings at that time were highly evolved, that they could understand this spiritual knowledge in a very short period of time. But it's not only spiritual, there is a lot of factual knowledge as well. So one of the most important things is, you can see the evolution from ape to human being, and Krishna says that there was never a time when I did not exist. I was always there. And you were also always there. And all these things were there. And we will never cease to be. We will always be there. So we think that time is progressing. Actually, time is not progressing. We are in 3 dimensions. But if you take 3 dimensions of block of slab and you cut it, we are like picture frames. So what we are tomorrow, we are not today. So if I am speaking to you, by the time my sound reaches you, I am already in your past. So the Bhagavad Gita or the Mahabharata which came to us is not first-hand information. It is Dhritarashtra, the blind king, wanted to know what is happening in the battle because all his relatives were fighting. So Vyasa said to him, I can give you divine vision and you can see what is happening there. But Dhritarashtra said, no, I am blind and I want to remain blind, but someone else can tell me about this story. So he gives it to Sanjay and he tells him, not only can you see what is happening, but you can also understand what is happening in the other person's mind. So this divine vision was gifted to him, and it was gifted to a few people in our mythology. And like I told you before, there are some senses which we don't understand, but if you are taught how to understand them, you will be able to see them. So you think that you cannot move things with your mind, but the artificial limb is already present. So you have an artificial limb, which if it is connected to your body, you can control it with your thoughts. So basic functions like closing the hand, lifting things, that is possible. And this can be created in your own home. There was a boy in year 9, when I presented this, there was a boy in year 9. He had made such a contraption using Lego machine, but he didn't make a hand. He made a vehicle and with motor, and he bought the head ring from America, and with the head ring he could give thoughts to the machine and that vehicle would move. So when we went to his stall, he said, give me some time, let me concentrate. He said, you need to have training for this. You can't just put it on and listening to your music to that. You need to have training, you need to prepare your mind. And then he prepared his mind and he gave the command and the vehicle started moving. So thought waves have been harnessed. So there are other dimensions which we don't understand. When we didn't have Wi-Fi, everybody thought that there needs to be some connection for energy to be transferred, for material to be transferred. But now we have Wi-Fi and it's magical, isn't it? You can send things from here and there at the speed of light and voila, that's magic. So I don't know how many of you have seen this movie, The Men Who Stare at Goats, or have read the book. I didn't see the movie, but I read the book. And that book is fantastic because it talks about some of the paranormal studies done by the US Armed Forces. And they were at one time worried about not being able to know what terrorists are doing. So they wanted to go into the minds of the terrorists. So there were a lot of experiments done. One of them was remote sensing. So there are people amongst us who can see things far away, even if you are kept in a closed space. And that is been proved by experiments. These people are naturally born, but there are few who have trained to do that. We call them seers or sages. So the experiment was actually to sit in a room and imagine a place where there is a terrorist cell and to relay to the armed forces what is happening there. And there were a few successes and there were a few failures. And because everything was again 50-50, that was eventually shelved. The project was shelved. But the results are very interesting. If you read that book, it will just blow your mind. And our rishis will say the same thing, that you can harness thought waves, you can control people's thoughts, or you can read people's thoughts. So if you are taking in info, so if you clear your mind and if you take in information, you will eventually take in thoughts of other people. And many of you may not realize it, but you are already doing it. So when you meet someone for the first time, you immediately know whether this person is a friend or not a friend, and whether you are in 5 seconds, you make a subconscious decision whether you want to be with this person or not. If you go for an interview, in 5 seconds, with the body language, you will tell you want to give the job to this person or not. So we have that ability, you don't realize it. So the Bhagavad Gita describes about many fantastic things, and I will just highlight a few of them, which I know because I read about these things and I was able to correlate them. I may be wrong because these may be flights of fantasy. So there is a time when Arjuna tells Krishna, if it is possible, show me your universal form because I am your friend and I want to see it. So Krishna says you can, whatever you wish to see, you can see at once, at the same time in this body of mine. It will show you whatever you desire to see and whatever you may want to see in the future. Everything moving, non-moving is here completely in one place. So if your short space of life, if you see whatever has happened, there is a reason for it. So if we have made a computer, if we have discovered other universes, when we look back with hindsight, we know that this fits in with the universal laws. So there is nothing which is new. There is nothing new happening, You are sitting here, suddenly someone doesn't appear from here. But if someone does appear here, like in Star Trek, then you will know how to do it. And it's already happening. There is a 3D printer. With 3D printers, they are making artificial limbs which work with all the circuitry. And that is how the pyramids were built in Egypt as well. So they had made a blueprint of how they want to stack it. So the tracks which are going to the pyramid, the various channels which were going, they were designed and each layer was put in. And I think most of you engineering students are doing that when you build things. So the 3D printer does the same thing. You need to supply it with the raw material that you want. You send an information from here and you can build an artificial limb in, right? The printer will slot one after other and you will have the artificial limb which works. And the human body is created the same way. If you study how a gamete converts into an organism, in the first few weeks you are born. And in those first few weeks, things are laid down like a 3D printer. That's why when you see genetic defects, like someone having lack of one bone, having deformed fingers, which are genetic, that is because when the print was formed, material was missing and you have gaps. So our body is doing that. Our body is a fantastic machine which is doing that. Unfortunately, our body thinks that we are alive and we are making our own decisions. So there are people who have this divine vision. One of Lord Rama's ancestors, he was given this divine vision when he saw that Indra was stealing the celestial horse. And recently in the news, I think about 5-6 years ago, Natasha Denkina from the Eastern Europe, she was tested because she claimed she had X-ray vision, so she could actually see people's bones. But as is the problem, when you test these things, half of the time, the subject will be able to do things, half of the time they may not be able to do things, and then it is all debunked saying that it's a hoax. Because we as human beings like to stick to things which are concrete, things which we can feel, things which we can see, and we want to believe in them. And other things we don't want to believe. But strangely, all of us believe in God. So they say that even if there are atheists, there is no atheist on a sinking ship. You will pray to something. So all of us, without seeing God, we believe God. But everything else which we cannot measure, we tend not to believe. So we see it, so our eyes are built to sense visible light. But there are other living species which have a different system to sense. So snake will sense with teeth. Cats and dogs, they don't have color vision. We have color vision. But what is our eye? Our eye is not showing us what we see. Our eye only collects light which falls on the retina and on the rods and bones, and it is converted into electrical impulses which go through the optic nerve into the vision area of the brain, and the brain creates a vision for us and shows us that vision. So when I see things, this computer is black, you may agree that it is black, but I don't know what is your black and what is my black. We just agree it is black because repeatedly I see the same thing. So if I become blind, and then I get vision later on, I would still be able to relate to things. But someone who is blind from birth and then is given vision, it will become difficult initially for him to comprehend things because the brain does not have a knowledge about things. So from childhood you have been taught things. That is how your vision develops. When something new comes in, you don't know. So you are standing in a dark forest and the tree moving will suddenly tell you that that's a human being, that may be a hand. It's only when you go there you realize that no, that is not hand. So the brain does play tricks on us. So you were asking about string theory. So there are about 10 or 11 dimensions. So they are all vibrating. So in the subatomic world, things are very different. They are not concrete. In matter, either this is solid or not solid, 1 or 0. But in subatomic physics, it can be two. It can be a particle or it can be a wave. So that's why for the electron, most of you who are studying nuclear physics, you will know that the electron is not a particle because the electron doesn't have a place. So Heisenberg's uncertainty principle says you can know the speed of a particle or you can know its exact place. You can't know both together. So at one time the electron seems to be here, at the other time it seems to be there. And at the same time they say the electron is actually a fog around the protons. So in nanoparticle area and subatomic world, things are totally different. Things are perceived differently. Even the Hadron Collider does not make us to sense things. It gives us the indirect information. It gives indirect information that the particle is present, but we cannot sense it. But there might be other living beings who may be able to sense these things. Ramanujan was a great mathematician, but he was not formally trained. But some of his theorems in mathematics are still not understood. And people have spent lifetimes on it trying to understand what he has devised. But he was actually working on mathematics for 10 dimensions. And he always claimed that these are not my ideas. The goddess in my village, she is working through me. So eventually Krishna shows his multi-dimensional form to Arjuna, gives him the divine vision and see me. And it is surprising that this story is coming from Sanjaya. So Sanjaya sees this. Sanjaya sees that Arjuna and Krishna are sitting in the chariot and there is this multi-dimensional form. So Krishna did not become the multi-dimensional form, he showed his multi-dimensional form. So Krishna was an incarnation of that energy, but he showed in the universe. He showed in the universe as it is. Everything is there. Everything you want is there. And there are some yogis who have gone beyond our plane and they are able to see past, present, future, everything in the same go. So they will see you as young, old and dead, and they will see your next life. So all of us are there. So, but because he has not seen something like this, he doesn't know how to describe it. So he starts describing, I can see many arms, many faces, I can see past, present, future, I can see blah, blah, blah. Because he doesn't know how to explain this. And it's described in a very poetical form. But today with our objective scientific understanding, we can extrapolate things that maybe that is what he was describing. Maybe he had that vision. So he ultimately asks him, who are you? Why have you come here? So he says, I am time. I am destroyer of the world. So for someone who has gone beyond time, beyond 4 dimensions, there is no destruction of the world. Because he may see one universe, another universe which is there. He can see both together. But for us, who are still in the 3rd dimension, for us time is moving and it is time which is decaying things. So we know time as the destroyer. But unfortunately, it is time which is not moving. We are moving through time. Time is stationary as it is. So we can say that Einstein was the god or incarnation for that time because he came forth and changed the entire way of our thinking. He just smashed all the old concepts and brought out new concepts. And he said that time only exists so that everything doesn't happen at once. And he described time with relativity and simply someone asked him, how can you describe it to me? So he said, time is relative. So if you are sitting with a beautiful girl, hours will feel only like minutes because you are enjoying your time. But if you sit on a hot stove, minutes will seem like hours because you want to get up. So that is the relativity we think with. So if there is someone on, say I am driving in a car and someone is walking, time is different for us. So time is something which don't understand. So if you take this as a block of space-time, then you will see that you can cut each segment like loaves of bread, and that is a segment of space-time. So now I am here, and when I go there, I think I am moving, you think I am moving, but probably I am not moving. I am like slides in a cinema theater, still images which you perceive as movement, which is probably not movement. So now the time has come that all of you are taught things other than what you know. You are taught about being a person. You are taught psychometrics when you want to get a job, or they are trying to fit you to your job, which has already happened in the West. So countries where education is funded, after tests they give you an idea what you should become. Either you should go into armed forces or you should become a scientist, and this is decided on your basic personality, which is called psychometrics. And God himself says, which we have wrongly interpreted for centuries, God himself says that based on each personality, I am going to create 4 divisions. Based on the goodness, the passion and the ignorance. So that's why we have Brahmanas, Kshatriyas, Shudras. And so he doesn't say that it is by birth. He says it is by your personality. So we have wrongly interpreted that there are, gotras or bloodlines. So when you are coming from a certain bloodline, you will obviously have those characteristics. So you would be good in doing that. But it is not like that. So I am a Brahmin by birth doesn't mean I am a Brahmin. I will be a Brahmin if I show the personality of a Brahmin. If I am spiritual, peaceful, given to doing spiritual things, I will be a Brahmin. So if you want to make me into a warrior or a king, I will be useless. The same way, someone who is a warrior, if he is brought to the temple to do puja, he will spoil his life and he will create chaos. So there are 2 ways of testing your personality, and believe me, when you reach for a job, you will be given these forms to fill, which I had to fill for my jobs in England. And you have to answer these questions, which are very trivial, but it gives a clear idea of what type of person you are and whether you are fit for the job or not. And that is very good. Because if you do something which you don't enjoy, your life will be ruined. So it's better to do something which you are made to do, and you will be successful in that. So in small aspects, they are either you are an extrovert and an introvert, whether you like to go out and meet with people, or whether you want to stay inside and gain energy from inside and do some internal thinking. So someone who is an introvert would be excellent at being a scientist. Doesn't want to meet anyone, sits in his corner, does his work, does a lot of thinking, doesn't feel tired. If you bring that person to become a salesman, either he will die or the company will go into ruins. The same way, if it's an extrovert who you bring into becoming a scientist, there was one physicist who was an extrovert and he was crazy, but he gave some of the most wonderful theories which were never published, because the scientists didn't like him. So he was an extrovert stuck in a group of introverts. He would just fall down on the floor, start doing push-ups, and the scientists didn't like him. So he was misfit in that group. So these are the extroverts and these are the introverts. And based on that, you can have people who can be intellectuals, administrators, businessmen, and manual workers. Very explicitly described, wrongly interpreted by us for our own gains. Probably it is still being exploited, the class system. So, when I wrote this at that time, the Higgs boson had come into picture. And boson is named after Satyendra Bose, who is from India, but now that is part of Bangladesh. So he actually gave the theory of a particle called a boson. And he said that, and later Higgs from Scotland, And Higgs actually got this idea when he was walking on the dales of Scotland. He got an idea that there must be an energy field which was created after the Big Bang. But from that energy, for matter like us to get that energy, there must be a link to get 3D matter. And that link must be a particle which is a boson. It is only after the Hadron Collider was created and experiments were done, they realized that such a boson does exist. So it is an approximation, no one has seen it. Like I said, we are not able to perceive, but it is an extrapolation that a boson exists. So now, so that's why the book, The God Particle, the book about boson was The God Particle. So it is the Higgs boson. So we have an energy in the universe which connects all of us. And we are also energy, but we are matter, and that is where we draw our energy from. That energy is the God that we perceive, which is all-pervading, all-encompassing, and does not do any discrimination. So, is it right to think that if we had no Higgs boson, there would be no matter, because matter is a part of energy? Probably it is true. So they also mention about cyclical universes. So in Hindu mythology it is very clearly given that Brahma creates a universe and he goes off to sleep, the universe is destroyed, then he is born again, another universe is created. And I think Roger Penfield, he did research into the cyclical universes, and he actually found background radiation coming from before the Big Bang. So that means there was a universe before the Big Bang, and the universe collapsed into a crunch, and a new universe was formed. So now we have scientific evidence to prove that universes are cyclical in origin. All of us come and go, we don't get destroyed. So Krishna says, I am unborn, I was always there, and I will always be there. And that is sort of law of conservation of energy, isn't it? So energy was there, energy cannot be destroyed, it just gets converted to another. So you may have energy, it becomes matter, matter can become energy. So when you burn things, they become energy. They give you heat, they give you light. So energy just converted, it never gets destroyed. So he also mentions about multiple planets. So he describes about a planet which we cannot perceive with our material vision. But he says it is there. And only people who have evolved can reach those planets. And we kept thinking that whether it's a physical planet where we go, or whether it's a metaphysical thought that when you progress further you go to another planet. But like I spoke about dark matter, there are some planets which we cannot see, but we can perceive them because the effects they have on other things in the universe. So he mentioned this to Krishna, but in a very short nugget, which we are able to understand now because we know that such things are existing. So the same thing I will end with it. If you meet someone who's like you, but not your twin, don't shake hands. Thanks.